Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. Today we're talking about something that isn't a future problem, but a present reality for millions of businesses. The end of support for Windows 10. Now you might be thinking, didn't that happen a while ago? And you'd be right. The official end of life date was October 14th, 2025. We are now in February of 2026, and a surprising number of organizations are still running Windows 10 desktops. So what does that actually mean? It means no more feature updates, no more bug fixes, and most critically, no more security patches from Microsoft. Your Windows 10 machines will still turn on, they'll still run, but they are, for all intents and purposes, frozen in time and exposed. Every new vulnerability discovered from here on out is a wide open door for malware and attackers. It's a significant risk, and it's happening right now. In this video, we're going to look at the options you have. We'll cover Microsoft's temporary solution, the extended security updates. But more importantly, we're going to explore a path that many are now seriously considering, migrating from Windows to an enterprise-grade Linux desktop. We'll look at why this is more viable today than ever before. Examine real-world case studies of large organizations making the switch, and discuss the practical steps and challenges involved. This isn't about hype, it's about a fundamental shift in the enterprise IT landscape. So let's get into it. So if your organization is still running Windows 10, what's the immediate official solution? Microsoft is offering something called Extended Security Updates, or ESU. Think of it as a paid subscription to keep receiving those critical security patches. For consumers, it's a relatively straightforward $30 a year purchase, which extends security updates until October of 2026. For businesses, the pricing is a bit different, starting at $61 for the first year, and that price is expected to go up for the second and third years. It's a way to buy yourself some time, and to be clear, this is only for security updates. You're not getting any new features, and if something else breaks, you're on your own for support. It's a temporary band-aid, not a long-term cure. It's also worth noting that if you're a Microsoft 365 user, the apps themselves will continue to get security updates on Windows 10 until October of 2028, but the underlying operating system remains the weak link. The bigger issue here is that ESU doesn't solve the fundamental problem. It just kicks the can down the road. The reason many businesses are in this position is because their current hardware simply can't run Windows 11 with its strict TPM and CPU requirements. So, paying for ESU for a year or two just delays the inevitable hardware refresh cycle. You're paying to keep using an old OS on old hardware, knowing you'll still have to make a major investment later. This is the core of the issue, and it's forcing a conversation that goes beyond just upgrading Windows. It's making IT departments ask, is there a better way? This brings us to the central topic of our discussion, Enterprise Linux. For years, the idea of a large-scale Windows to Linux desktop migration was seen as a niche, almost radical idea. But here in 2026, it's becoming a pragmatic and strategic business decision. What changed? Well, it's a combination of factors creating something of a perfect storm. The end of Windows 10 support is the immediate catalyst, but it's the restrictive hardware requirements of Windows 11 that are really forcing the issue. Companies are looking at a forced, expensive hardware refresh across their entire fleet, and that's a tough pill to swallow. This is where Linux steps in with a compelling value proposition. First, let's talk about cost. We're not just talking about the absence of licensing fees. The German state of Schleswig-Holstein, which we'll discuss more later, is projecting annual savings of around 15 million euros by switching to open source solutions. That's money that can be reinvested into the local economy and custom development, rather than being sent overseas for licenses. Beyond cost, there's the growing concept of digital sovereignty. This is particularly important in Europe, but it's a global concern. It's about having control over your own data and IT infrastructure without being locked into a single vendor's ecosystem where you have no say in how data is handled. Linux and open source software provide that control. Then there's the hardware itself. Linux is famously efficient, it can run beautifully on older hardware that doesn't meet Windows 11's strict requirements, allowing organizations to extend their hardware lifecycle significantly. This isn't just a cost saving, it's a major win for sustainability and reducing e-waste. And finally, the way we work has changed. The rise of software as a service, or SaaS, means that many of our most critical applications, our office suites, our communication tools, our CRMs are now accessed through a web browser. They are OS agnostic. The dependency on a Windows-specific application ecosystem is shrinking every year. While the global desktop market share for Linux is still modest at around 4%, in the world of software development, it's a massive 43%. The tools and the talent are there. The technology has matured. This is not the Linux of 2006. This is a polished, stable, and secure platform ready for the enterprise prime time. This isn't just theoretical. Large, serious organizations are making this move right now. The most prominent example is the German state of Schleswig-Holstein. They are in the process of migrating 30,000 government employees from Windows to Linux. This isn't just the OS. They're replacing Microsoft Office with LibreOffice and Exchange and SharePoint with open source alternatives like Nextcloud and OpenExchange. Their motivations are clear: cost savings, digital sovereignty, and flexibility. They're learning from the past, specifically from the failed Linux project in Munich years ago. The key lesson there was the failure to involve employees in the process. Schleswig-Holstein is taking a different approach, with long transition phases, parallel use of old and new systems, and extensive training. And they're not alone. The government of South Korea has plans to switch. Barcelona has been working on it, and we've seen successful smaller scale migrations in places like Denmark and Turkey. Now let's be realistic, it's not without its challenges. The biggest hurdle is often application compatibility. While SaaS has solved a lot of problems, what about those essential custom-built Windows-only line of business applications? This is where tools like Wine and its commercial sibling Crossover come in. The latest versions, based on Wine 11, have made incredible strides in running Windows software on Linux, including versions of Microsoft Office. For those truly stubborn applications that won't cooperate, running a Windows virtual machine on a Linux desktop is a perfectly viable and often used solution. Another common concern is integration with existing infrastructure, specifically Active Directory. The good news is this is largely a solved problem. Modern enterprise distributions like Ubuntu, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and SUSE Linux Enterprise Desktop all have robust, well-documented methods for joining in Active Directory domain. You can still manage users and apply policies centrally. The point is the technical barriers that made this non-starter a decade ago have been systematically dismantled. So if you're considering this path, how do you approach it? A successful migration isn't a weekend project. It's a carefully planned strategic initiative. The experts recommend a 4-phase approach. First, a preliminary assessment. You need to take a full inventory of your existing hardware, your software, and your critical business workloads. What can be replaced with a native Linux or SaaS alternative? What absolutely must run in its current form? This is where you identify your biggest challenges. The second phase is planning. This is where you select your Linux distribution, whether it's a commercially supported one like Ubuntu Pro, RHEL, or SUSE, or a community-driven one like Mint. You'll choose your hardware, which could be new machines from vendors like Dell, Lenovo, or System76 that come with Linux pre-installed, or it could be your existing fleet of Windows 10 machines. You'll also plan your deployment methods and, crucially, your user support and training strategy. The third phase is the migration itself. As we learned from Schleswig-Holstein, this should be a gradual process. Run pilot programs. Involve your users. Use parallel systems for a while. Don't just flip a switch overnight. The final phase is post-migration validation. You need to confirm that everything is working as expected, that data has been transferred correctly, and that your support teams are equipped to handle the new environment. This isn't a decision to be taken lightly. If your organization is deeply embedded in a complex proprietary Windows software ecosystem with no viable alternatives, then a hardware refresh and a move to Windows 11 might still be the most practical path. But for a growing number of businesses, especially those leveraging cloud and web-based applications, the case for Linux on the desktop has never been stronger. The combination of cost savings, long-term stability, security, and control over your own digital destiny makes it a compelling alternative. It's no longer a pipe dream, it's a real strategic option that deserves serious evaluation. So take a look at your own organization. What are your needs? What are your pain points? The end of Windows 10 isn't just a problem, it's an opportunity to rethink your entire desktop strategy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.